Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. We're going to get started in a very short time and just letting a few more people come in. I know this is a busy time of year, so thank you so much for making the time. Really looking forward to sharing this information with you. And yeah, and especially hearing your questions. So get those questions ready because we're going to have a really great extended Q&A session. Wonderful. So let's get started. I'm going to share the screen with you. There you go. Okay. So what we're going to do today is spend about 15 to 20 minutes outlining how we at Anjali Education Consultants approach college admissions with specific examples. And for the rest of the time, we're going to answer your questions. So a little bit about me to start with. I'm a former Princeton University interviewer, TED Talk speaker, and college admissions expert. I'm also the very proud mom of a thriving 25-year-old now in grad school. At Anjali Education Consultants, we've helped hundreds of students get into their top perfect match schools, including Yale and Stanford, Johns Hopkins and Vanderbilt, Swarthmore, and UT Austin, to name just a few. I'm really glad you're with me here today. And I know that many of you are here because you can clearly see that applying to college has become much more challenging. And many of you are probably feeling some mixture of combination of excitement and anxiety. So let me first begin just by acknowledging that I truly understand these feelings, both as a parent and a professional. And by the end of this talk today, after I outline the specific challenges and solutions, I think you're going to feel not only much more clear and in control of the process, but also confident and aligned with what you truly want. So I'd like to start by telling you a brief story. I grew up in New York City and went to an extremely competitive high school. Just to give you an idea, I had 5 to 6 hours of homework a night and felt oppressed by it all. Despite this, I did well, but I could not wait to get out there, out of high school, and go to college. My senior year in high school was truly bizarre. My classmates and their parents got together and offered me cash to withdraw my applications after I was admitted early action to Yale University. Apart from the really unsettling feeling this gave me, I had not really decided if I wanted to attend that school. I wanted to see which other options opened up for me in the spring. And as it turned out, I ended up going not to Yale, but to Princeton. But this experience left me feeling really uncomfortable. And when planning my own son's education, I was determined he would not suffer the crushing, toxic academic atmosphere I had endured, which I did not feel served me in the long run. I wanted my son to be happy, first and foremost, and also successful. But how to strike the right balance? So the difficulty started with choosing a high school for him. We went back and forth between a competitive, well-known prep school and a small, unknown school that prioritized love of learning and independent projects. I realized that either way, there would be trade-offs, but in the end, I chose the small school where my son found his passion. And given that I had been an interviewer for Princeton for many years, as well as a teacher who wrote letters of recommendation and gave college essay guidance, you would think it would have been really easy for me to guide my son through his college applications, right? Not at all. So I hired a colleague to work with him. And after many months, at the end of a surprisingly complex process, he was admitted into an Ivy League school. But that is not what he chose. He made what some might think was a very unexpected choice. And I will tell you all about it at the end of the webinar. So what I want you to know is that I have been where you are. Although I knew the system well, when my son applied to college, I had complicated feelings. Like many parents, I was vulnerable to confusion, to frustration, to fear, but I did learn something really important. I discovered that my son like all of you here today, was facing a threefold problem. Number one, increased competitiveness. Number two, complexity of the application process. And number three, rising cost of college. Now, let's look at what this challenge looks like in practice. First, let's consider the competitiveness of the college admissions. If you were a Texas student in the 90s and graduated in the top 20% of your class, you were admitted to the University of Texas at Austin automatically. Now you need to be in the top 6% of your class. If you were applying to Yale in the 90s, you had an 18% chance of admission. Now it's under 5%. 70% of USC applicants were admitted in the 90s, but now it's under 12%. And maybe some of you read a Wall Street Journal article recently about a young woman with an SAT score of 1550, a GPA of 3.95, phenomenal extracurricular activities and leadership positions, who applied to top-tier schools only and was admitted to none of them. So there's no doubt that college admissions today is super competitive. Now, let's look at the complexity of the application process. 20 years ago, you might have applied to one or two colleges. The process was clear, simple, and straightforward. Now, because of all the many moving parts of the application, students are applying to many more colleges, as many as 8 to 15 for our students. So that's a lot to stay on top of. And the complexity is increasing. As you have probably heard, ChatGPT and other generative AI are already impacting how college admissions view the college essays. Admissions staff are looking for new ways to make sure the student is who they say they are in their writing. Additionally, in the face of the recent Supreme Court decision about affirmative action, colleges are going to have to dig deeper to understand what each student brings to the college community. At a recent meeting I attended with UCLA, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and University of Washington admission directors, I heard what matters most in the applications in the face of these changes. And that is what has always mattered: students sharing their authentic lived experience, telling their story, basically. And if their lived experience was impacted by being underrepresented, then in the essays, they can still tell that story. To give you a glimpse into the complexity, take a look at all the elements that ideally should be in place for students to have optimal merit scholarship and admission results. Recently, a friend of mine was telling me about the ordeal of helping his son apply to college last fall. The numbers of different essays for each college, the completely different online applications to fill in, SAT prep or ACT prep, coordinating with his school to send letters of rec, different deadlines, additional applications, essays, and so on. This was all a ton of work and created months of tension with his son. So clearly, this complexity needs to be simplified. Now, after the competitiveness we saw and the complexity of college admissions, the fact is that college has gotten incredibly expensive. If you look at this graph and brace yourself, this really illustrates how the cost of college tuition has exploded. The red line here on the bottom is the rate of inflation, and as you can see, the black line on top is the rate of increase in college tuition. So college tuition has massively outpaced inflation for decades now. In 2023, private colleges can cost up to $91,000 per year, while in-state tuition for public schools can cost up to $29,000 per year. But here is the good news. Merit scholarships can be worth tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So how do we do this? Here are 3 quick success stories that illustrate how we guide students to gain a competitive edge, simplify complexity, and maximize scholarships to reduce the cost of college. We will be sharing tips for each one of these case studies that you could implement in your own lives. So let's look at Tony to start with. When we began working together in early 10th grade, Tony had high A's and an SAT score in the 1500s. He was stellar in math, so his teachers and his family naturally were pushing him toward engineering. But after talking with Tony, we realized that his heart was really not in it. That's not what he wanted. And this was the game changer. We identified that he had a significant talent and passion in art as well as STEM. So we matched him to a local art mentor, helped him develop his art so that he could create a portfolio for his applications. And exploring his interest in visual arts and combining this with talent in math led Tony to discover a passion in architecture. And this really made all the difference because it made him stand out. And why did it make him stand out? Because now Tony had a story to tell, an authentic story. Remember that lived experience we mentioned? Had an authentic story that helped him stand out from the crowd, because nothing will make you stand out more than having your own story that demonstrates genuine passion and growth. So to summarize, Tony discovered his passion. We simplified the application process by guiding him to a clear major and career path he loved, architecture. By curating his art portfolio and targeting his essays to align with architecture and his new vision for himself, Tony found a competitive edge. He was admitted to his first choice, Rice University, and is now there majoring in architecture. What's the takeaway for you? Think about and discover your passion. Link that passion to your profile and your talents, and then make it your own unique story so you stand out in the admissions process. Now, not all of us are straight A students like Tony. Many of us get a mixture of A's and B's. We might have a down year, get sick, or be in a competitive high school, but we're still ambitious. This was Ellen. She had a B average from a competitive high school, but was confident about thriving in a selective college. We discovered that her GPA had significantly improved over the 3 years of high school through her hard work. When she got B's, it motivated her to get tutoring, find a college professor as a mentor, and she kept signing up for challenging classes. She also rose to a leadership position in a startup incubator to explore a major in business. But how was she going to pull all these threads together to showcase her accomplishments? Ellen worked to tell her story in a compelling way. We helped her tell her story as a journey of growth and responsibility. She demonstrated through her essays and applications how she learned from setbacks and how these setbacks led to her development and improvement. In fact, they became assets. So maybe you or your child are like Ellen. You discovered a specific passion halfway through high school, or maybe you began to excel by the end of junior year, or maybe you're a straight A student who had a clear major in mind from the start. Either way, you may not recognize what is exceptional about you, but everybody has a powerful story to tell. You need to tell your story in a memorable way, your passions, your challenges, and your successes. So to summarize, for Ellen, she simplified the application process by keeping accountable and breaking down the long list of tasks into small steps. She submitted standout applications, and she eventually received 12 scholarships ranging from $20,000 to $100,000. She gained a competitive edge by pulling all her academic and extracurricular experiences together into a compelling story in the essays and interviews, so that despite her GPA, she was admitted as a business major to Emory University, her first choice. That's the takeaway for you. We all have problems and sometimes failures. Look for the challenges and setbacks you have overcome to tell a compelling tale where you are the hero of your own story. Now, Grace's story is slightly different. She had a mixture of A's and B's, no test scores, and a remarkable singing talent she needed to showcase. So what was the solution to the threefold problem of college admissions for Grace? First, simplify the process by keeping her organized and on task through spreadsheets and an application tracking system. Second, keep costs down by optimizing all aspects of the applications and her profile and tailoring the college list. And by doing that, Grace was awarded scholarships ranging from $80,000 to $199,000. Now, third, as Grace was a singer, she gained a competitive edge by curating her vocal submissions or her videos and helping her. And so she was admitted by doing that to the super selective Grammy summer camp. In the end, she was accepted to her first choice college, the very prestigious California Institute of the Arts. So what is the takeaway for you? If you have a standout talent, get in position to tell your powerful story by participating in competitions and prestigious summer programs. Make that talent the center of your applications and allow test scores to take a backseat. So the three students we discussed, Tony, Ellen, and Grace, were all success stories, but very different one from another. Yet, for all of these students, they solved the problem of competitiveness, complexity, and cost of college. Through these three case studies, I hope you've gotten some valuable tips on what to prioritize. Before we answer your questions, which, by the way, you could start putting in the Q&A, before we start answering your questions, let's first answer the most common one, which is how you can work with us. So there are three simple options. But before we get to that, let's get to our track record. For our 2023 application cycle, our average scholarship per student was $80,000. The return on investment for working with us was very high, as our fees were paid for many times over. In this same application cycle, students we worked with were admitted to some of the most selective colleges in the country, including Stanford, Dartmouth, University of Pennsylvania, and Johns Hopkins, as well as excellent schools such as UC San Diego, Penn State, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and many more. Best of all, these were all colleges that were the right fit for each student, which is really important when you're putting together your college list. So if you want to get a competitive edge, simplify the application process and keep costs down like the hundreds of students that we have helped, here are the four simple options for different budgets. So working with us can happen as early as 8th or 9th grades. And with the talent development packages, we have time to identify your kids' talents, discover their passions, and make sure they really get on track. The option also maximizes admission and scholarship results when they apply to college. We will help optimize their GPA, test scores, extracurriculars, and summer planning. And packages start at $29.97. Option number 2 is for 11th and 12th grade students. Our A-list application package, our most popular one, will give you a competitive edge, simplify the complex application process, and keep costs low. We will help optimize essays, SAT prep and testing, summer planning, as well as demonstrated interest. And this package costs $12,997. And option number 3 is for 11th and 12th grade students as well. This college advisor package is the same as the A-list package, but instead of working directly with me, you will be working with an advisor I have handpicked and trained. And the cost is $8997, sorry. And so if you're serious about working with us, then absolutely, these are the 4 simple options. Now, Sydney, if you would be kind enough to put into the chat the link that you can use to sign up for a one-on-one session. If you're serious about working with us, please sign up for one of these sessions to explore the possibilities. And what you can do is, if you're a parent and it applies, please bring a spouse. And if it's a student, please make sure that you bring both parents. So now what I'd like to do is, before we take your questions, I'd like to finish the story about my son who applied to college a few years ago. So at the end of the process, at the end of that process, as I mentioned, of applying to college, he did, in fact, my son did, in fact, get into an Ivy League school. But that is not what he chose. Instead, after a lot of research, investigation, deep reflection, and a visit to campus, my son chose an amazing school, Carleton College in Minnesota, which may not have be on your radar, but it turns out employers, graduate schools, and prestigious fellowship boards know very well. It was by far a better choice for him than the Ivy. At Carleton, my son got more attention. Classes were more targeted. His professors advocated for him. He stood out. And after his freshman year in college, he got the Orion mission internship at NASA and a second Orion mission internship at NASA the following summer between his sophomore and junior year in college. Today, he's in grad school at an Ivy League college and tells me that in retrospect, although some disagreed with his college choice, this was absolutely the right decision for him. And best of all, for me as a mom, he is happy and thriving. So parents and students, you may be anxious right now, but I can assure you that there are many roads to success. Please remember that college is not a destination. The college application process can help you begin to discover your purpose, a great first step in designing a life of meaning and financial stability. And that is what I wish for all of you. So, Sydney, before we get started with the Q&A, please, if you would put into the chat again the link for one-on-one discovery sessions so people can explore working with us. Students, please bring your parents. Parents, if that applies to you, please bring your spouse. Excellent. So I will just look at the questions you may have, and fantastic. So there's a question that comes up a lot, which is a question about early decision and early action and how that plays into admission. So I'm going to answer that question. So certain schools, certain selective schools are it makes a big difference whether you apply early decision or not. So early action and early decision are both application options for college admissions, but they're different in terms of commitment and flexibility. Early decision is a binding agreement between the student and the college. So for example, if a student is admitted under early decision, they are required to attend that college and withdraw all other applications. This option is typically for students who have a clear first choice and are willing to make a commitment to attend the college if they are admitted. Now, there is an exception, and that is many colleges are now saying, please wait to see the financial aid package that we offer because we want to be sure that you can afford that. In other words, if the financial aid package they offer you is not affordable, many colleges do allow you to say, well, thank you for the offer, but because we can't afford your financial aid package, now, we need to look at what other admission decisions come in. So I just got an email from one of our families saying that their daughter was admitted early decision to Boston College. And they, in their offer letter, they said, yeah, please wait to see what the financial aid package that we offer you is so that you can make that final decision. So that's a really good thing because we're seeing more and more of that. And in the past, whether you could afford it or not, the idea was, well, it's a binding contract. But this seems a lot more kind of human of them to understand that. Also this year, I think it's even more true because the FAFSA is not even available yet, and we're in December, right? Early action, though, just to give you an idea, is non-binding, which means that the student can apply to other colleges and does not have to make a commitment to attend the college that admits them until the regular decision deadline, right? So it's the advantage is, number one, you're demonstrating your interest really early. You're getting an answer really early. So it can be very beneficial and very strategic. It helps on a lot of levels. And this option is really typically good for students who want to get this decision early, but want to keep their options open. Early action will increase your chances compared to the regular admission application period on the whole, although not as much as the early decision. Now, know that for early decision schools, where it's the binding agreement, it depends on the college. For some colleges, applying to a college early decision will increase your chances of admission by 2 times to 3 times to 4 times, because some colleges are filling up their class very, very early with ED students. So schools like, in the past, schools like American and Tulane have been schools like that. So when you're looking at your strategy and you're saying, oh, am I going to apply early decision? Am I going to apply early action? Look at the past track record of admission rates and compare the admission rates of early decision and regular decision for these schools. Because if you take an Ivy, for example, the admission rate is not going to be that different, right? It's not like you're going to get a huge boost. What you are doing is you're telling them, this is my first choice. But the schools that typically have lower yields, that means schools where fewer of the students admitted actually enroll. By the way, this is publicly available data. The yields are very findable. The lower the yield, the more incentive the school has to admit a student to kind of try to fill up their classes early. I mean, it's much more complex than that. I'm simplifying it, but I'm just trying to give you some tools to be able to make these strategic decisions that are super important and can help a lot. Okay, great. Let's see. We've got a question here. Harold, if you just graduated high school and you're just applying to college and a scholarship, what would be the total cost? Okay, not clear on what you mean, Harold. If you could send another question to clarify. Are you talking about the cost of the applications? Are you talking about application fees? Or are you talking about and applications to scholarships? I'm not sure what you mean by total cost, because if you look at application fees, it can either be, $10 to $50. That's kind of the range. I've seen a few colleges that charge more, but you can apply for a fee waiver so that you don't have to pay for these application fees. That's number one. Number two, sometimes look in your email. Colleges will make these special offers. Hey, if you apply or submit your application within the next month or whatever, the application fee is waived. Again, the colleges doing this are colleges typically with a lower yield number. That does not mean that they are inferior schools, okay? Please don't think that. The yield is an interesting phenomenon, because it's kind of like It's interlinked with the U.S. News and World Report ranking. The higher the yield, the better the ranking. But then it becomes a bit like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the idea of reputation of a school, which, by the way, be very careful when you're looking at those rankings. Don't use them as your college admissions Bible. A lot of top schools have been withdrawing, especially from U.S. News and World Report rankings. There are some other interesting rankings. Wall Street Journal has an interesting one. There are a number of interesting rankings based on different things, right? That's when you start to see that the rankings are not set in stone. They depend on what criteria these different organizations have used to do the ranking. And as I was saying, yield is linked to this U.S. News and World Report ranking, which means that if there's the perception that a school is better, it's not the fact, but it's the perception, that might influence the yield. In other words, the percentage of kids admitted. If you're admitted, how likely are you to go to those schools? It might influence that, which then in turn will influence the ranking. So then it kind of becomes a, self-fulfilling prophecy. What I'm trying to say by this is, when you are involved in the college admissions process, be like a discerning consumer, okay? Be aware of these things, things like the yield, like how that affects the ranking, because what you want is to make choice of a list of colleges that are going to be right for you based on fit, okay? There's a paper that came out from Stanford that's called Fit Over Rank. Now, because making sure that the college is the right fit is the best kind of predictor for the student thriving at that school. Now, don't get me wrong, I have nothing against highly ranked colleges. Absolutely not. But what we want to be sure is that when you're applying to college, or when your kids are applying to college, you're doing this with your eyes open and you understand what the tools are for making that list, that college list. If you're going to use rankings, use them with a grain of salt and understand what it's doing for you. It should just be one tiny little piece of the puzzle. Okay, question. How early should I start applying for scholarships? Yeah. So generally speaking, we have students apply for the college-sponsored scholarships at the same time as their college applications. So for juniors, you're going to submit your college applications somewhere between August and December of your senior year. We recommend earlier on the whole, because that gives you, some of those scholarship deadlines are earlier. Some of them are October 15th, some of them are November 1st, some of them are, December 1st. I mean, each school has their own system. So the way that you can be in the best position of being able to apply to the scholarships is to get your applications in early. Some of those scholarships you'll be automatically considered for just by submitting your application, and some of them you will have to apply separately for. So the longer your timeline, the longer your runway to get all this done, the better. That's why we recommend that the students that we work with in 11th grade, I mean, we have students every year who come to us quite late in 12th grade, and it's still doable. But when we start working with students in 11th grade, we start early. We get a lot of the pieces in place so that they are in the best position of being able to meet those internal scholarship deadlines, and not be juggling their senior year with all of these scholarship applications. Now, what I just talked about are scholarship applications to scholarships that are offered by the colleges themselves. That's one type. The other type of merit scholarship is third party, what we call third party scholarship. Okay. What is a third party scholarship? It is a scholarship offered by an organization that's outside of the colleges. For example, there are full ride scholarships like Bill Gates or Brian Cameron, or a bunch of full ride scholarships for super high achieving kids. That's one type. There's another type that's smaller scholarships, $2,000 here, $1,500 there, but it can add up. And you can go to two websites to find them. We recommend Go Merry, GOMERRY, like Merry Christmas, Go Merry, and Raise Me, RAISEME. I think there's a period between the raise and the me, raise period me. So we see a lot of our students doing that after they've submitted their applications, but there are students who do that as early as 11th grade. It's quite time consuming, right? Because there are thousands of these little scholarships. So what you want to do is, first of all, figure out what you think you'd qualify for, have your check in with your high school counselor, see if they have a list that they would recommend for you. Now, some high school counselors are going to be very available, and some are really not going to know you very well. They're going to rely on you to reach out to them and all of that. But already on these websites, you can start to get a good sense of, the timing, because that's a good question. When should we start, right? When should we start? We do have students begin working with us as early as the beginning of high school. Why? Because then we can put all the pieces in place so that, you're in the best position possible for getting those high merit scholarships and admission results. Okay. What's the deadline for students who graduated high school filling out a scholarship application? Okay, that depends on the scholarship. I just worked with a student who graduated from high school, and the deadlines were in the fall for some of them, right? But this student was applying to some kind of full ride scholarships. He applied to the Gates Millennial. He applied to Brian Cameron. He applied to what is that one called? The it'll come to me. Anyway, the point is, those that he was applying to, it was quite early. It was like September, October, beginning of November. So definitely double check. Okay. Does a good PSAT score, Sahana, good PSAT score help in getting scholarships? That's a good question. Well, the PSAT is linked to the National Merit Scholarship. The National Merit Scholarship is $2,500 per year of college. And if a student is a good test taker, right, and that kind of thing comes easily to them, it can be a great source of, as I say, $2,500. Sometimes a good PSAT score can also help with other with other scholarships, because they might ask in the questions or in the documents, they might say, what did you get on your PSAT, or what did you get on your SAT? Generally, some of them, it's just like a combination of grade and SAT, or even PSAT score. So yes, the short answer is yes, but don't feel, if you didn't get a good score on the PSAT, don't feel that those scholarships are off limits to you, because they're not. Most of these scholarships are looking at other things. They're looking at your academic performance, your letters of recommendation, your essays. They're looking at your leadership, at your resume, building your profile in a way that is really aligned with who you are. Remember, we talked about this in the webinar. We talked about telling your most compelling, authentic story, right? Why? Because, yeah, not only is it going to help you with admissions and scholarship results, but also by building that profile activity by activity in a way that aligns with who you are and what really matters to you, as opposed to saying, oh, let me think of what colleges want. What do colleges want? I'm just going to check off all the boxes. Well, that can be a real empty exercise, because either way, you're going to have to put in work, right? So let's make sure that those activities that you do really correspond to helping you understand more about yourself, understand possible majors and careers that you may want to go into, because it has to, help you. And the side benefit is that if it really is aligned and it's really authentic, it's going to help you write better essays and tell a better story. So it's definitely win-win in terms of that. Okay, wonderful. So let's see what other questions. Yeah. So let's see what else here. Yeah, so college list. We often get asked the question, how do you create a college list, right? Well, what we really want is to be sure that the colleges on that list, that you have researched them. First of all, the list should be balanced, right? Let's make sure that there are likely schools on there, target schools, reach schools. Now, you can just stick with target and likely, that's fine. You can add reach or what we call lottery schools. And now we've divided colleges by admission rate. Why do we do that? Because it's a conservative way of doing it. We want every college on that list to be a college that you would love to go to, right? Let's make sure that you don't have any throwaway colleges on that list of like, oh, well, if I don't get in anywhere else, then I'll just end up at X school. Don't do it, because this is the thing. Number one, this is the next 4 years of your life, right? This is super, super important. Number two, apart from the fact that, this is your life, you definitely want to be sure that you're looking for schools where you're going to thrive. So it can, often the question is, well, if it's a highly ranked school and the reputation is super high and the yield is super high for these schools, then it's got to be good. Well, my answer to you is, where are you going to thrive? And the way to find that out, there are very simple solutions for that. Number one, you can do virtual tours. Number two, you can do in-person tours. You don't have to go to every college on your list, but you might try one or two. Also, remember, there are so many fantastic colleges in this country. We are so lucky to have that incredible choice. So in the end, there's really no reason for you to end up with a college on your list that is subpar, for you. That's what I mean by subpar. Something that, oh, well, it's a safety school. First of all, I recommend that you do not use that word, the word safety, because honestly, these days, the only safety schools are two categories. One is the community colleges, where you go there or you go online and you sign up for classes, and that's the end. Or schools where you may have automatic admission. For example, in Texas, the top 6% of graduating classes for Texas students, top 6% automatically admitted to UT Austin. However, even for those auto admits, they are not guaranteed their first choice major. They are not guaranteed. So in other words, you could be automatically admitted to this flagship, public school, but you may not get the major you want. And again, you got to think about it. This is your life, right? The way that we look at college admissions, and I highly recommend that for you, for your kids, is to look at college not as a destination, but as one step in designing a life that has purpose, meaning, and the kind of prosperity that you're looking for. What is this college going to do for you? Again, as I said at the beginning, be the informed consumer. Colleges these days are run like businesses. We put the colleges on a pedestal and we think, oh yeah, ivory tower and all of that. Colleges are run like businesses, which is fine, but be the informed consumer. Know what you're getting yourself into. Also, when you start to get those marketing emails that, colleges, they make it seem like they're inviting you. I mean, obviously, if they've invited you to a one-on-one appointment, that's a different story. But we recommend that you do not check the box off on College Board or ACT to share your information, because your inbox will be flooded with marketing emails, which make it seem like, they've pre-selected you, but really they're just casting their net really widely. So, the more you know about the system, the more you can navigate it in a sane and enjoyable way. Because the college application planning can be a journey of self-discovery, which is what I hope it is for all of you, or a totally exhausting ordeal that does not deliver on its promises. So, you can make this into a process that is going to really get you closer and closer to the major that you want, the career that you want, the understanding of who you are and what your strengths are, because this is an amazing part of the college essay process. They're asking you to reflect on your strengths. Often I'll get asked, what are your tips for writing a great college essay? One of the main things is do what you need to do to reflect deeply on yourself. Because what are colleges looking for? They're looking for students who are going to contribute to their college community in some way. When we work with students on college essays, we have them do what I call a talent stack, which is identify their strengths and how they've gotten there, the growth that led them to develop some of these abilities. And then those strengths can be the basis for a great college essay. And so basically the basic point here is this process will be what you make of it. If you determine from the beginning, I know that this is going to be, there's going to be a lot of pressure from peers, sometimes well-meaning adults who all think or all say that they feel that, they're experts in the college admissions process. Be careful, because that's, there's going to be a lot of noise right? But if you have that vision for yourself, that this process is going to be about empowering you to find a list of colleges that you love, to do a great job on those applications, to choose extracurriculars that really align with what matters to you and who you are. And all of this with a goal of landing in a college that will be a great fit and that will allow you to lay a foundation, for the kind of life that you want to build. And that's why I said at the very beginning, this is both a very exciting time and and can be a little bit of an intense time. But again, if you determine that your goal here is going to be to discover more about yourself, then all your choices that you make from now until you enroll in college can be aligned with that. I highly recommend watching my TED Talk, because that's on that. It's, what do you want your journey of college applications to be about? Is it going to be an exciting journey of self-discovery, or is it just going to be, this kind of blind focus on getting in to a list of certain brand name schools? So that's your choice. That's your choice. And again, we have in this country, we are so lucky. There are so many amazing schools that fit different kinds of people with different goals and different strengths and different personalities, and we have certain colleges, they are expensive, but there are so many options for merit scholarships, for third-party scholarships. Think, maybe open your horizons a little bit, if that's possible. Could you write your college essay as a high school student? And if yes, what resources would we be given to complete that? Not sure what you're asking. The college essay is written by the student, right? The applicant. If you work with us, we will guide you step by step from brainstorming possible topics all the way through draft 1, which focuses on content, draft 2, which focuses on structure, draft 3, which focuses on word length and refining the style. And then generally it's either draft 3 or a few more drafts until you get to that polished final draft. Again, this is something some of the high schools, the English teachers or the counselors are asking the students to write a draft. And that's fine. When students work with us and they have assignments for their English teachers, their high school counselors, we'll help them kind of make sure they're not doubling down on their work. But what you want to do is realize that this is an opportunity for self-reflection and to reveal, first of all, to think deeply about what really matters to you, and then to find some great illustrations, great stories. Often students think, oh, my college essay has to be, a masterpiece of literature, or, you've read the essays that worked in the New York Times, or you've gotten a book of college essays, or whatever. You hear that, and you might think it's got to be this unbelievable thing. What it has to be, it has to reveal you. But some of the best essays we've written, that we've seen students write, some of the best essays they have written that we've seen them write are essays that are quite simple in a way, about a relationship to a best friend and how, that evolved over time with challenges and changes and growth. But other stories, of course, are much more dramatic. It really depends on what we said at the beginning, which was your lived experience. What is your lived experience, right? Okay, and then another question here. What would be your advice for those out of high school working with you guys and helping them develop as a person and as a leader? Yeah. So we do work with students who've taken gap years or graduated, that's for sure. And, what you want to do if you're taking a gap year, or you're taking time after graduating, is you want to be sure that that year has been planned well and you have organized some really interesting activities. We've had kids who've done internships. We've had other kids who've volunteered, other kids who've gotten a job. What you don't want to do is just sit around at home for a year. So when you ask, how can develop as a person and a leader, it's by choosing activities during that time that will help you develop the kinds of skills that will be most useful to you in college and in your work and beyond. And how do we know what those skills are? Well, we get to know you. We give an interest and strengths assessment. And if you're not working with us, you find those interest and strengths assessments online, and you start to be able to formulate, what are my strengths? What are my challenges, right? Okay. Yeah, sources for college rankings. Yeah, so, Wall Street Journal has an interesting one. I read an interesting one in Forbes. There was also another interesting one that I read, which, the major publications will come out with them. But start with those two. Start with the Wall Street Journal and the Forbes. Absolutely. Okay, good. Well, anything else? Because we've got time for one more question. If you all have anything that you'd like to ask. But in any case, I am really glad to have been able to spend this time together, and really wish you all the best in your college planning and application journeys. Keep the idea in your mind that there are many, many roads to success. Each person's path looks different. And you can be strategic, right? You can be highly strategic and high achieving and still take care of your well-being. I didn't touch on this, but purpose, we talked about purpose a couple of times. Purpose, there is a very good book called On Purpose, which you might enjoy reading, which shows the research that has been done in this area. There's so much evidence showing that having purpose in your life increases well-being, protects you against chronic illness, both mental and physical. So that, to me, is a long-term win-win strategy for young adults, to develop. And if you start developing this in the college application process, it will serve you very well strategically also, not just in terms of well-being. Okay, how to decide what to study. In other words, how do we know about different fields? Yeah, that's where the interest and strengths assessment comes in. We have one that we use with students. There are free ones online for sure. And it's important for you to, some of those careers, they're linked to personality. Some of those personality tests can be helpful in the career, but there are also some other assessments that are more linked to aptitudes, not so much personality, aptitudes and interests. So explore what's out there for those interest and strengths assessments. And then also the other way to find out what field is to do internships, try different things out, be exploring different avenues. And that can be through having a job in high school. Tara is asking. It can be very helpful. So thank you, Sahana. Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody that has participated, and sending you all my best wishes for the next leg of your journey. Take good care. Good night.